The first one being this: White House accuses Amazon of hostile and political act on tariffs. Now, let me get out of the way so you can see. It says the administration took aim at the company amid a report. It will show the extra cost of tariffs next to item prices. Okay, so I want to know your opinion in the comments that have you actually seen these sort of detailed item, pricing in addition to the tariff cost? Because I actually did see a sort of breakdown and I thought it was on Temu, but I'm not quite sure what I was seeing it on because it was really briefly yesterday. But the fact that they are mad, they are angry, it's hostile. Hostile? That's a very, very strong choice of words for Amazon. I thought Amazon and Jeff Bezos were like buddy buddy with the Trump administration, considering that they gave money to the inauguration and that they were contributing to this sort of fostering of good relations between Amazon and the administration, supposedly to the tune of a lot of people speculating that Jeff Bezos was going to be part of that sort of restructuring of the United States Postal Service. Do you remember all of that speculation? Like, we all thought that he was in good with the Trump administration, but apparently this says otherwise. So when you think about all of the tech companies that contributed to the inauguration, that stood in that line behind all the people who were watching him get inaugurated the second time, okay? All of those people who gave money and are now potentially not in good graces with Donald Trump and his administration, it kind of goes to show you. Do you remember that law firm that sort of capitulated to Donald Trump and said that they were going to do all this pro bono work, and then he kind of changed a few of the things that they wanted him to do? And that was one of the biggest things that Harvard saw, and they were like, no, because if we capitulate now, then what is he going to do down the line? Okay, so here enters Amazon. They gave money, right? Jeff Bezos gave money to the inauguration. And then I'm assuming he thought he was in the clear, right? As do most people believe that they're probably in the clear if they give you the money. Except, what are they going to want in return? Well, maybe Donald Trump wanted too much in return. And this is the sort of revenge act. White House mad at Jeff Bezos. Think of that. I mean, Jeff Bezos has been in the press a lot lately. Blue Origin, a lot of different things that basically you would think that are a little bit, suspect. At least him trying to get the Blue Origin door open, I'm not sure. But this is a very interesting one to see in the headlines that they are mad. It's almost like they need another villain, right? Do you remember how Elon Musk was the villain with Doge? Now, Elon Musk is sort of quietly exiting to go, take care of his own companies, and maybe he'll be part-time, like one day a week or whatever. Maybe Donald Trump needs another villain. And because Amazon is so intertwined with all of our lives, maybe he's going to paint Jeff Bezos out as the next villain that is, harming the Trump administration and all of its goodwill with the American people with all those trade wars, right? Cosmo, how are you? Really? I don't know if they're going to be mad for forever at Amazon. Maybe just putting this out in the press will change Amazon's ways, and they won't actually detail the tariffs in their sort of line items when you actually go to checkout. I haven't seen it, but apparently this is happening. Samal, I hope I said that right. How are you this morning? Let's get to some other things that I think are very, very important. This one is about an Irish woman who was legally in the United States and apparently was detained by ICE after an overseas trip. Okay, this is very important because a lot of people want to go travel, but they're scared to go away because of the fear of when they come back, they might be questioned about their legal status, which is the job of the TSA and all of the people in the airports and the like, right? But it's not their job to detain people who are legally here, right? Who have legal status. And so I wanted to just bring this to the light because this woman, I want you to see a little bit more of this story. It says, an Irish woman who had been legally living in Santa Cruz for more than 30 years was detained by ICE this month after returning home from an overseas trip. She's a green card holder. She's 54 years old, and she first ran into legal trouble in March after arriving back from a trip to Ireland to visit her father, who has dementia. Okay, she was detained and questioned by customs, okay, in the San Francisco airport over her past criminal activity, which had been deemed, right, between 2003 and 2008, which had been supposedly expunged, okay, for, I guess, drugs or something, possession, right? She had all of this expunged, and they still were like, what's going on, right? Ward claimed her convictions were expunged, however, prompting customs to temporarily release her to obtain the appropriate documentation to prove that her records had been cleared in California. When she went to plead her case at the SFO Customs on April 21st and present the proof of her expungement, she was detained once more and told to argue her case in front of an immigration judge. Okay, so not only are they detaining people in the airports, okay, then they're saying, hey, we need to really look back into your past, right? If they give you a green card, that green card, when they did the application, they should have already looked into the person, right? They should have done their due diligence with the application, with the background check, with all of the things. And now they're going back into people's histories and saying, we don't know if that green card is valid because we think that we see some other things, okay? So now they're going back on people who are legally here for 30 years and saying, we don't know about those charges. They let her go, then they bring her back, and then they say, no, I don't know if we want you to plead your case here. We're gonna set another date. We're gonna detain you, and we're gonna set another date for you to plead your case in front of an immigration judge. I don't understand why the expungement details that she's providing as proof weren't enough. Because if they let her go, she clearly wasn't a danger that day, okay? And then she comes back. She does what she's supposed to do, but that's not enough, okay? So all of the rules that people are doing right now, they are changing them minute by minute by minute because one, the right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, or the right hand wants the left hand to do more. And more in the sense of make people feel fear. They want people to be fearing the government in a way that they probably have never feared the government before. When you go into an immigration office, and I've been in there because my husband is French and he has a green card, and he has never had anything happen in the United States where he has had any offenses, or even in France, okay? So when you do this, you are blood boiling, heart thumping, because you don't know what kinds of questions they're going to ask you and if your answer is going to be satisfactory for that immigration person, right? The person doing the interview. Not because you're a criminal, but because it is a stressful environment. So to put these people who, this woman, she's from Ireland, I believe, for 30 years she has been in the United States, a legal green card holder. And to put her back through that trauma seems like an overreach by so many yards. Like, why would anybody do that to a person like this? And to think she's not a danger and to say, oh, we're gonna let you go and go get that proof. What does that say to the person? Okay, like, I don't understand this. You explain it to me in the comments. Cosmo says that's crazy. Judah says, guys, airports are the main place of travel. Absolutely. Right? When you go to the airport, you're going to go through TSA. And I'm not arguing with the fact that they have to actually do their due diligence, make sure you're who you say you are, get the information, blah, blah, blah. But to then say, oh, hold on, we need to look at your green card status again, and then tell her she's okay to go get her proof, but then hold her and detain her when she brings back her proof, I think it's a bridge too far. Okay, that's why I wanted you guys to see the story, because it's just a little bit crazy. All right, back to it. I want to bring this to your attention too. If you haven't had a chance to like this, definitely take a moment and like this live stream if you are engaged. And if you haven't followed me here on YouTube, please take a moment to follow me on YouTube. It definitely supports my channel. Liana, how are you? The only Dooley Gordon, she will start to think about it soon. It's playing on her mind. Absolutely. I would think that this is going to be playing on anyone's mind when they are, constantly going back and forth in TSA. And then now suddenly the status doesn't matter. It's just bizarre. This is Beyonce's concert from last night, okay? This is a still shot that I screenshotted from Coco Moco, and it's a message. It says, never ask permission for something that already belongs to you. This was on the screen. If you didn't watch the Beyonce sort of live streams that were going on TikTok and all the other different social media platforms, I would definitely go and take a look today. There were a lot of different sort of messages that she was putting out there. Bonjour, Vivian, how are you? Jody, how are you? And this, I actually thought this was one message, but when I went back and looked at some of the comments of my post, I saw some other things that people thought this was actually talking about. So she was actually singing the national anthem when this was back, like in the middle, toward the end of the song, this came on the screen, okay? So she's singing the national anthem, full voice, live, of course, Beyonce is always live, and this was flashed on the screen. I took this because she went right from the national anthem right into the freedom song. Freedom, freedom, I can't lose, right? She's going into that. And I thought this, never ask permission for something that already belongs to you, to mean take your ownership back, right? You are your own person. The freedom that we have, you know what I mean? Like the freedom of your person, like you are, if you are not in a prison right now, you need to make sure that you are fighting for that freedom, right? That's what I took this as. Now, when I went back into my comments from this post, somebody said she's actually talking about the genres of music that have been basically co-opted by other groups of people. Okay, now she's talking about in this country music, don't ask for permission for something that already belongs to you. Like they were thinking that this was talking about the country genre in that she's doing her Cowboy Carter tour. And I was like, okay, well, maybe this has multiple meanings. So I want to ask you, leave a comment. Is she talking about when she says this, your freedoms, your rights, your sort of ownership of your own space? Is she talking about the genre of country music? Put it in the comments because I'm curious to see what you think because I went somewhere else based on the fact that she was singing the national anthem and she went right into the freedom song. Now, I'm not sure though. So you have to tell me your opinion. Cosmo says, yeah, we should all stop flashing on screen. Okay, so this I know a lot of people did see, but it was really just like a moment of while she was singing. It wasn't something that's stayed on the screen for a long time. All right, so definitely make sure that while you're here, you take a moment to subscribe to the channel and like this video. Let's talk about one more thing here before we get too far into the weeds. And this is, sorry, I already talked about this. Let me go back here. This is from Pete Buttigieg. Okay, if you're not following him, he actually posted this, let me get out of the way, today. And it's talking about the 100 first days of Donald Trump's presidency. And this is on Substack. So if you haven't followed him on Substack, go ahead, follow him on Substack because he has a lot of great opinions, ideas, and things that I think people should be thinking about. And he asks, are you better off than you were 100 days ago? So I want to ask you the same question. I want to see your comments. I want to know if you personally, not your family, not your children, not your parents, are you personally better off than you were 100 days ago? Yes, no, maybe so. I don't know. Put that in the comments. I want to know your opinion because a lot of people might say, yeah, my life is better. Some people might say no. Like I feel like in this, space that me and my family are living in right now, are we better off than we were 100 days ago? I would say No. And the reason I would say that is because I can see what's coming, and I can see how I've changed my life based on what has happened in the last 100 days. Cosmo says not really. Jody says no. The only Dooley Gordon says why 100 days. Okay, that's a very good question. And the reason that people ask about the first 100 days is because that is a sort of milestone for any president. And that milestone is kind of judged and measured against other presidents' first 100 days. Like, what are you able to get done? Because you're coming in from winning supposedly an election, okay? And some people, if they win the White House, the Senate, and the Congress, they're coming in with a lot of sort of mandate. Now, Donald Trump did not necessarily win with a sort of commanding mandate. Okay, he has like 2 votes, I think, over the Democrats in the Congress. This is such a slim margin, and he's also battling the sort of Freedom Caucus / MAGA movement, like that kind of breaks off into these sort of factions inside of the Congress. So he's not necessarily coming in with like the gusto. Although he projects that he has all of this sort of mandate, he actually does not. And that has definitely been reflected in his poll numbers. Phoenix, I don't know, is that say Phoenix Fire? I can't, it reminds me of the Fire Festival. We should talk about that. Okay, let's see. It says, I would say I'm not better off, and I doubt I will be for a while because of the stuff that's being done that affects me and those like myself. Okay, that is that. Thank you so much for giving your responses. I see a few of them. Vivian says, I think a big no. Now, G says, hey, here's my question. Do you even work? Okay, I want to tell you, if you haven't seen my channel before, I have had a few past lives. I used to be a professional dancer. I have a doctorate of a doctor of education, and so I actually teach English to students online. So yes, I actually do work. Some people might consider this, what we're doing right now, work. I actually think it's fun talking to you guys. So definitely hit that like button if you think this is fun. I think it is building community. And if that is what you call work, a lot of people do that for work. I don't actually do that as my primary source of income. So no. So let's see. The only do the Gordon victim card. I'm not quite sure what that means exactly, who you're speaking to. Maybe it's in the comments. All right. Let me get to something else that I thought was very interesting over the past few days. And this is it. Now, a lot of people love going to Canada. A lot of people believe that Canadians are some of our best friends to the north, right? So what do you think about this? The Liberal Party wins Canadian elections in major rebuke to Trump. Now, a lot of times when we think about the sort of Canadian, US, Mexico connection, what we're all doing is definitely going hand in hand, right? We all sort of benefit one another because we are in the same spatial area of the globe, right? We have to, in one sense, we have to maintain some sort of decorum. We can't just always be lashing out at our neighbors, because then we would be in too close of a proximity to having wars break out between the US and Canada or the US and Mexico. Now, there are some things that I think that have happened recently where Donald Trump has basically said he wanted to annex Canada. Now, I absolutely believe that Canadians are ready to go. I've been seeing a lot of Canadian social media where they are like, we don't believe that the US is our friend anymore. And we don't believe that Donald Trump likes us as a country anymore. And we don't believe that Donald Trump believes that, in our friendship, and the fact that he's going after us about annexing us, and this is our governor instead of our prime minister, like all the things. Doesn't sit well with them, okay? And there's so many things that are very disturbing about Donald Trump's sort of position against Canada, that they're not having it. And the fact that they won I want to know what you think, because there's so many things that I think are really I would say, detrimental to having this sort of relationship with Canada that basically makes our sort of relationship deteriorate at a much faster rate. Tell me your thoughts about our relationship with Canada and why you think that this is important to maintain a good relationship with Canada and be able to have this sort of cordial back and forth with Canada without making them our closest enemy, right? There have been some talks with Mexico where the border is obviously one of the biggest things that Donald Trump is trying to push as far as like being secure and making sure that weapons aren't being with the cartels and sort of the fentanyl and all of the things. Like there are a lot of times when there are things that are really important to kind of clamp down on, right? But Canada doesn't necessarily have the same sort of dynamic with the United States that Trump is projecting with Mexico. So I'm curious as to how this is, how would you say, playing out with the future of the relationship between the U.S. and Canada. Let me try to see if there are some more here. Canada. I don't even know what that, I don't know your profile name. It just says, Canada has the best part of the North of America. Well, you know what? I actually believe you might be correct in some aspects. Like, obviously, we have great things in North America, but there are so many sort of natural landscapes and sceneries and, you know, the hiking and the skiing and the, you know, all of the things that I think that there are so many great aspects, not just to Canada as far as like what you can do with, you know, the nature, but just their sort of, how would you say, their demeanor, their mannerisms, they're a loving sort of, you know, country. They've always been our friends. And so I always feel like attacking Canada is detrimental to the United States. And I think that that is just, it's just sad. But I also don't think that that he cares that much. I just don't think he cares that much. All right, let's move into another thing here. Now, Trump ramps up immigration crackdown with new executive orders. This is something that I think you guys have probably all have seen. One executive order mandates the truck drivers speak English while another targets sanctuary cities. I wanted to talk about the truck drivers. I want you to tell me, how many of you believe that this is actually going to do anything? Okay. And I don't know how you can implement this. So if I'm a truck driver and I'm already driving my truck and I come into a weigh station and they ask me something and I have to prove that I know how to speak, write in English, both of those things. I have to speak and write in English. Okay. What if I fail? Do they take me off the road? Do they sideline my truck? Do they just take away my license? What happens with the load that, you know, I'm supposed to be delivering? Okay, what happens with that? What happens with the sort of ability for me to actually have a job, right? There are a lot of people, and the reason I bring this up is because there's a lot of people who are born in the United States who do not speak or write in English very well. And when you put them in a situation where they are now being tested while at work, while stressed out, trying to get the load from point A to point B, I don't know that they are going to perform up to whatever standard is being presented, okay? I don't even know what the level is that they have to speak at. Is it just, what's your name? Is it, where are you going? Do you understand what I'm saying? What are the questions? Like, what is the sort of test that they have to take in order to prove that they can speak and read and write in English? And does that now take away from the time that they're driving their load from point A to point B? And now the people, the brokers, whomever they are having to put in extra time in that process to make sure that if they are stopped, that they aren't being charged for this extra sort of testing. And what happens if a lot of people fail? What happens if a ton of people, because I don't know how many people are really proficient in English that are actually truck drivers out there on the road. What happens if they can't pass the tests? And now we have a significantly less amount of people actually participating in this actual field. Okay, I want to go to the comments because I know you guys have been writing. Chris Friday said, I want my semi-truck drivers to actually be able to read signs. Is that wrong? That is absolutely not wrong. But let me tell you, if you have a driver's license, then you have passed a driving test, which means you should be able to read the signs on the road. So this extra requirement of being able to read and write and speak in English is different than if you can pass a driving test, because you should be able to recognize all of the signs on the road if you have a driver's license, which doesn't necessarily mean you can verbally have conversation, right, in English, right? They have testing, maybe at the DMV, that doesn't require you to actually take the test in English. And that's because most of the signs on the road, whether you're looking at a yield sign or looking at a stop sign or looking at a, green, yellow, and red stoplight, those are not in English. Those are just symbols and directives, right? So I'm curious, why speaking English? And I'm not saying it's bad, but great, let's all speak English if we are in this particular position. But how do you test the level of the people who are already in that position without potentially taking them off the road? And then what do you do with that load? Are we just going to be letting things expire, like there's just fruit on the side of the road in a truck because that driver can't go to drive that truck anymore because he couldn't pass the test in the middle of his delivery? I just think that this is a very interesting executive order to try to implement without actually describing what sort of system, what's the testing, when does the testing happen, and what happens to the drivers that can't pass the test. What happens to their deliveries? Let's see. The voice inside my head profile says, everyone who crossed that border illegally needs to go back. It's interesting that we talk about the border here because there are people who come in airplanes and they stay or overstay their visa. And so when we talk about borders, let's not just talk about making sure that we are securing our border, but that we are making sure that the people who come here, let's just say to visit, that they actually don't overstay their visas either. Because what they're doing right now is they are claiming that the people who are in the United States illegally have crossed over some land border, okay? And they are focused in targeting Black and brown people. Instead of everyone who may potentially be here not with the right status. They are not targeting all of the people coming from European countries and things like this. So I actually have run out of time this morning, you guys. So maybe we will do longer tomorrow. I am doing YouTube lives every single morning, Monday through Friday, around this time, around 8:30 Pacific time. So definitely schedule me into your regularly scheduled programming. And I hope to see you back here Wednesday morning for another YouTube live. I didn't even get through all the headlines of this morning. There are so many different things. I believe Donald Trump is holding a rally to celebrate all the bad things that he has done in the first 100 days. Definitely like my live stream if you are so generous. I would love that. Share it out if you have the time, and definitely don't forget to subscribe to my channel. It definitely supports me and brings me back to chat with you every single morning. Also, if you have a chance, join my Substack. The description in this live stream has my Substack in it. It's free to join, and I do a Substack live every evening, Monday through Friday as well. I hope you love this, and it's so great talking to you guys because I always love to share my opinion. I love to get your opinion, and I'm not trying to argue with anybody. I just want to build this sort of dialogue with you guys. So have a great one, you guys. I will see you tomorrow.